Good morning. We'd like to welcome you to the July edition of the City of Winston-Salem Public Safety Media Briefing. We are delighted to see so many people here with us today, and we certainly extend our warm welcome to all of you. My name is Mel Sadler. I'm the Director of Emergency Management for the City of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. And we're going to have a special guest do a short presentation with us this morning. Following our presentation, we'll hear from the City of Winston-Salem Fire Department and the City of Winston-Salem Police Department. We are in the midst of the summer season, as you may have noticed, and there are lots of hazards and other problems that go along with being in the summer. One of those, of course, is summer storms, and we've had a pretty interesting situation over this past weekend in respect to storms. We thought it might be appropriate at this time, particularly this time of the year, to ask one of our partners. We've talked briefly previously about the fact that our agency works with a number of other agencies on a partnership basis in order to ensure the public safety of the City of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County. We're very pleased to have with us today Mr. Jimmy Flythe. Jimmy is the Director of the West Region of Government and Community Relations for Duke Energy. Jimmy is our go-to guy, essentially, for problems that occur and the accompanying explanation and the other information that goes on with restoration of power. Please join me in welcoming Jimmy Flythe.
Thank you, Mel. It's a great opportunity to have a chance to come and explain a little bit about how we go about responding and preparing for storms here at Duke Energy. It's really an appropriate time when you think about the thunderstorm that just went through this past Friday night, probably about 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock when it came through Winston-Salem. That storm affected Duke Energy across North Carolina. We had over 350,000 customers across the state that experienced an outage due to that storm. And I think the worst hit area across the Carolinas was in Wilkes County that had the most damage, and we just finished putting the power back on about 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon in Wilkes County. So those folks up there, we appreciate those customers' patience, and they were very appreciative of the work we were doing and very nice to our crews in a difficult time with the heat that we had, and we know it was inconvenient for them not to have power. So I want to go through and just kind of talk a little bit about what we do to prepare. See if my slides work. So I'm going to give you a little bit of just kind of let you know, we're ready to respond. The storm that came through Friday night was something that was unprecedented as far as just the widespread thunderstorm that we've had here in the Carolinas. And so we're constantly, we're on go. We're ready for storms whenever they occur. And then talk a little bit about how we prepare, what we do to prepare, how we restore power, and then also informing the public. This slide just gives you an idea of Duke Energy's service territory. We have operations in the Midwest, operations in the Carolinas, which is our primary area, and then also in Florida. The good thing about that, and being the size that we are, is pretty rare that a storm or a weather event affects all three of those regions at the same time. So when we need to bring crews from one region to another to assist, or here in the Carolinas, if Florida gets hit with a hurricane, we can send our crews down to help them restore power as well. We also have the ability to call on other utilities and other contractors across the southeast and even further up all over the country to come in and assist if necessary for storm restoration. One of the things we do, we've got a team of forecasters and meteorologists that are constantly monitoring the weather for us and giving us updates. A couple of things to kind of talk about. This past Friday, the forecast was pretty severe thunderstorms were expected. And about 4:30 in the afternoon, or actually about 3:30 in the afternoon, our operating manager, Neil Bowen, is meeting with our supervisors for each of the operation centers, trying to make a determination whether to let folks go home or whether we need to hold them past their quitting time at 4 o'clock to continue to work. And in this case, the forecast was pretty ominous, and so he made the decision to go ahead and have all of our, we didn't have any trouble right then at that time, but we made a decision to have all of our employees plan to come in at 6 a.m. on Saturday morning to respond to the storm, and that worked out that we really did need everybody. And The next slide's just to give you an idea of the impact and kind of what we do before the storm. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. This is sort of give you an idea for like a hurricane or an ice storm when we've got a lot of notice that the weather may be coming in. So we're doing certain things at about 72 hours ahead of the storm. We're starting to get ready, making sure, finding out who's going to be available to respond to the storm, leadership positions, and sort of putting everybody on alert. At about 48 hours before then, 48 hours we're doing a little bit more preparations, and then 24 hours before a major storm, we're already kind of getting in our 24-hour mode. We've got determining who's going to work a second shift all night, who's going to be on first shift, and sort of getting into that mode to respond to a storm, to a major storm. After the storm hits, kind of what we've got to do first is assess the damage. And so a lot of that, sometimes after a major storm like this one in the past, there's a lot of down lines and power lines. And so what we've got to do is determine what the damage is, determine what resources we need, and then determine what the restoration is going to look like to try to establish those times of restorations, which is where our customers want, and emergency management and first responders kind of want to know too, kind of when we think we'll get the power back on. And so that's a difficult situation. Sometimes that takes a couple of days. And a major impact, we've got to bring in additional scouts to scout those lines, and as we bring in additional resources. Talk a little bit about the different priorities and how we decide what damage we had here in Winston-Salem Friday night. The damage really wasn't all that widespread. We had just a few smaller outages around, but we had one major outage that occurred kind of right there. If you think about those two pine trees on the screen there, a similar situation happened to us in North Winston this Friday night. We had a very large white pine tree fell and knocked down 2 circuits, and that affected power to about 3,600 customers in the North Winston area. Customers really didn't see much damage because of that in their immediate region, but those 2 circuits fed 3,600 customers, and the damage was so extensive it had to be worked in daylight. And we had crews available and starting work on that at 6 a.m. the next morning, but it took all day just about to get all that power restored. So when we're looking at those priorities, the first thing we do is kind of critical infrastructure. If we have hospitals, water treatment plants, water systems, those types of things that kind of are necessities. So we'll try to work those. And then if we've got emergencies, if you've got lines down in major roads and intersections, we'll try to work with first responders to determine what the impact is going to be and how quickly we can get back to those situations. And then finally, we'll start looking at the outages that affect the most customers, working on those larger outages first, and then eventually we'll get down to the customers where you've got an individual service that maybe is torn off the house or something to that effect. But our primary focus is the health and safety to start with. And then when we're looking at also, let me point out too, in those critical care situations like nursing homes, those facilities are supposed to have backup plans and backup generators, and we often will communicate with emergency management during a storm to determine how quickly we can get power back, and so help them make the decision if they have to evacuate a facility. And in some cases there's so much damage it would take it's going to take multiple days, and so we can provide that information back to emergency management and help them make the decisions that they need to make. Communicating with customers, what we'll do in those situations is, we're letting emergency management officials know. I usually send out, I've got an extensive list probably of 200 different people in my area, and I'll send an email letting them know we've got some bad weather forecasted, and then as things go on, I'll continue to provide updates, let them know how bad the damage is and what we think our times of restoration are going to be so that local officials can respond as well. When customers call us and let us know the power's out, we've got the ability to call them back and let them know status. You typically on a regular storm, if the power goes off, it's typically about 3 hours, and so we have a standard kind of average. It takes about 3 hours to restore power to a normal situation. When we get into a major storm, we're going to change that in our system so customers hear that we've had a major storm and that we're assessing damage, and it's going to take a while before we can update. Customers now have the ability to go online and they can sign up for automated outage reports like text messaging or email, and we can send them updates as things change, as the system status change and as crews set the estimated time of restoration on an individual outage, they can get a text message to kind of let them know that that we're available. We also do a lot of outreach to media, social media. We've got folks that are monitoring Twitter, Facebook, and trying to determine what customers' questions they have and answer those to try to get the message out. So we're trying to catch up with the current communication abilities that we have. I won't spend a lot of time, but as I mentioned, we have the ability to ask for help from other utilities. The Southeast Electric Exchange, we've got folks, their year-round job is kind of looking at our storm response, and so they're communicating with other utilities. And when we know bad weather's forecast, we'll start talking to those utilities about what we need to do in order to bring in additional crews. In Wilkes County, for example, we had a line that had about 8 broken poles going up the side of the mountain to Brushy Mountain. And so we had to bring in a special line truck that had tracks on it that they could get off the right-of-way and work through to try to make those repairs. The ways we've got for customers to notify us, you can see on the screen for Duke Energy Carolinas, it's 800-POWER-ON. That's the number to call and let us know. We've got a system that will notify and goes into our system. We've got the ability to manage about 100,000 calls an hour at our contact center and the call systems that we have available. It's a far cry from when I started the company 31 years ago. You would come in a storm situation and you were writing down phone calls of what damage it had and looking at maps. So this system that we've got now helps us predict where we've got problems. Just to give you a little bit of quick flow, if customers can call us, they can report by web, by mobile phone, or just calling us in. It goes into our storm management system. And from that, we can determine outage locations based on the calls that are coming in, and we track the progress. In the future, we'll have automated meters that we'll have two-way communication. And so right now, typically when your power goes off, we don't know till you call us. We know if a substation goes off and an entire circuit's off, we know that immediately in our control center. But individual outages, we rely on customers still to call us. In the future, we'll have the automated meters that will get information back and we'll know when the power's off. I want to talk a little bit about life-threatening as we do with fire and safety. When we have an emergency call, if it's a life-threatening situation such as a car wreck and a pole and power lines are down on a vehicle, we're going to do everything we can to get crews to respond to that immediately. But just like for folks to understand, we don't have sirens and lights on our vehicles. We don't have the permission to run red lights. And so it's going to take us a little bit of time sometimes to respond. During the summer months, we have more outages, more activity, so we've got more people on call. But still, there are going to be some occasions where every one of our on-call personnel are responding and working on a particular outage. They've got to make that situation safe and finish up that work before they can respond. So occasionally, we do have some delays in trying to get to an emergency. Unfortunately, after a big ice storm like we just had, a big thunderstorm like we just had, it's going to take us time to get to all those different down lines, and we're just going to try to rely on you and the media and ourselves, just letting customers know to be careful of any down power lines. Even though something may look harmless, it could be energized. If it's a telephone line, it could be wrapped up into energized conductors. So we just kind of want to make sure everybody understands it may take a few days to get all of that those repairs done immediately. And we communicate during the storm. I think I mentioned earlier, we're constantly letting emergency management officials know. Mel's got my phone number to call if there's any instances. Police and fire can call me, and we'll get the right folks dispatched. If I'm not going to be out of town, we'll have somebody backing me up that's available to respond. And so our goal is to try to work closely with local officials, local government officials, media, anybody else that's just responding to a storm. Like I said, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook. We've got our storm website. We've got a nice map that customers can go to and see where the outages are and look at the system. It'll show different outages across the whole Carolinas, the region, so you can get an idea of the impact. And with that, I'll stop and see if there are any questions. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Trey Mayo. I'm the fire chief for the city of Winston-Salem. The fire department has 4 presenters this morning. First off will be Training Captain and EMS Coordinator Chris Belcher. Chris is here to discuss medical response for the past quarter, including Narcan administration for opioid overdoses, defibrillator usage, and advanced airway placement. He'll also discuss briefly how basic life support and EMS and early CPR are the keys to saving the lives of sudden cardiac arrest victims. And finally, Captain Belcher will talk about heat-related medical emergencies. And as he does that, that'll lead us into Lulie Beckles. We're pleased to have Lulie join us today. Lulie's from Safe Kids Northwest Piedmont, and she's going to talk about child deaths from being left in hot cars and the importance of proper child safety seat installations. Following Lulie will be Assistant Chief and Fire Marshal Robert Owens. Chief Owens is going to talk about the new fire code enforcement schedule that was adopted by the City of Winston-Salem and took effect on July 1st. And then finally will be Fire and Life Safety Educator Sabrina Stowe. Ms. Stowe is here this morning. She'll talk about our hiring process that closes on July 17th, and she'll also talk about the upcoming Citizens Fire Academy. Before I talk about the July line of duty deaths for the City of Winston-Salem Fire Department, I would remind everyone to follow us on Twitter at cityofwsfire. David Kaiser was electrocuted at a fire scene on July 14, 1915. He touched an exposed wire during salvage and overhaul operations at Miller's Tailor Shop, which was in the Paramount Theater building at 429 North Liberty Street. Exactly 5 years to the day later, also on July 14th, in 1920, D.L. Rivas was assigned to Engine 1, which at that time was a horse-drawn steamer. Just prior to midnight on July 14th, Engine 1 was responding to an alarm box, an alarm from Box 14, which was at the Twin City Hospital on Brookstown Avenue. A street cleaner had just cleaned the intersection of Liberty and 5th, and as the steamer approached 5th on Liberty and tried to make that turn onto 5th Street, it spun out of control on the slick pavement that was left behind by the street cleaning operation. 3 firefighters were thrown off the steamer, and firefighter Rivas died from severe internal injuries. The weight of the out of control steamer took it into a storefront where it crashed, and Old Henry, that was the horse pulling the steamer, Old Henry suffered a broken leg, and he had to be put down as well. So you could consider that 2 line of duty deaths, 1 human and 1 horse that day. And then finally for July, on July 16th, 1980, Fire Chief Arnold Bullard suffered a heart attack and died following a training exercise at the Public Safety Center. Chief Bullard was highly regarded as a firefighter's fire chief, and Central Fire Station is now named for him. Central Fire Station is, of course, on Marshall Street. So let's have a moment of silence, if you will, to remember these individuals, as well as the 38 firefighters who have lost their lives in the line of duty around the country this year so far, and also for our brother and sister public safety professionals in Dallas who have recently suffered such a tragic loss. Thank you. Captain Belcher.
Good morning. As Chief said, I'm going to give you a brief rundown of our medical response for the Winston-Salem Fire Department. This total number of calls is from April 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2016. It was 3,156. That's broken down into two various types of calls. One of them is, as you can see, is when the fire department initiates the care. They basically get there first before the ambulance crew does, and they start the care. That was 2,065 calls. The second one, the fire department either arrived with EMS or after EMS, and that was 1,091 calls. Some of the highlights with those calls, during this time, the crews from the fire department utilized various medications that we carry, as well as some advanced airway devices and the AED. The first one is the Narcan. As was said before, that's used for narcotic or opiate overdoses. This was administered 15 times. Our automatic external defibrillator was used 10 times, and the King Airway was used 14 times. The King Airway is also called a blind insertion airway device, and this is what it looks like, and it's just about taking the place of what the paramedics do, which is actually intubate a patient. And basically the crews, they slide this down in and then fill up the balloons to secure the airway, and then they're able to ventilate the patient and better control the airway. One of the things that that's important to note is that all this that the men and women in the fire department are doing and learning, along with various trainings that they go to on the medical side of things, and training with Forsyth County EMS, the ultimate goal is to increase the number of saves. What study was done back in 2004, and actually the New England Journal of Medicine actually released their study on August 12, 2004, and basically it reports an increase in cardiac arrest saves with early CPR and early defibrillation. And that's from that time to actual discharge of the patient. That's not the patient that's going to the hospital and not coming out. So these are actually patients that are going home. One of the things that you'll see on the next slide when we get to it is part of that study shows that about 4% of those saves is actually attributed to advanced life support medications. The other 96% of it is attributed to early CPR and early defibrillation, as stated here. With that being said, the Winston-Salem Fire Department is now offering hands-only CPR training. A lot of people don't like to take CPR classes because they don't want to, or they're afraid to get involved, and they're afraid they'll have to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Well, part of the American Heart Association studies, what they've done is they've proven through research that hands-only CPR and keeping the heart pumping is the best way to increase the survivability of a patient. In the conclusion in that, in order to save lives, healthcare planners should make cardiopulmonary resuscitation by citizens and rapid defibrillation response a priority for the resources of emergency medical service systems. And that came straight out of the research article that was posted in the New England Journal of Emergency Medicine. On that note, one thing that has occurred this year is, as a result of this, the American Heart Association has awarded Forsyth County EMS and Winston-Salem Fire Department with the 2016 Mission Lifeline EMS Gold Award, like it says, from the American Heart Association. And that has to do more so with cardiac-related events like heart attacks. And they look at from the time the heart attack started to the time the patient gets in the cath lab. With the trainings that the fire department does along with Forsyth County EMS, and some of the responses as to how we respond and treat the patient has shortened that time to the point to where Forsyth County EMS and the fire department got recognized for that. One way to make a difference in the community, okay? As I said before, the hands-only CPR, we offer these classes in the community. We offer them to civic groups, church groups, service organizations, the community centers, fraternities, sororities. If you want to do a hands-only CPR class, these classes take an hour or less. It doesn't take much time at all. And you can make such a big impact out there. All you have to do is contact Sabrina Stowe at 336-773-7965, or you can go to the website, which is cityofwsfire.org, and you can schedule one of these hands-only CPR classes. Next thing I'll talk about is heat-related calls. Obviously, it's been one of those hot years. In 2015, these are just some rough numbers. Actually, these are numbers we pulled off of our reporting system. But in 2015, we ran 43 child locked in a vehicle call. Heat-related calls, we ran 15 last year. This year, as you can see, we're already at 16 on child locked in a vehicle and already at 10 heat-related calls. That being said, there's a couple of things that you can do to help prevent these heat-related illnesses. First and foremost is hydrate the day before you go to work. If you work a job that's outside, that you're constantly in the heat, make sure you hydrate with lots of water. Avoid any caffeine drinks, energy drinks, soft drinks, and then hydrate throughout the day as you work. Make sure you take breaks. When you take breaks, take them in the shade. The use of sunscreen is highly advised, and you apply it before you're going outside. And then if you're out there all day, it's not a bad idea to apply it a second or third time even. Knowing your limitations is important, and a big thing is keeping an eye on children, because as you know, children will go and go and go until they just give out. So keep an eye on your children, and then people who have breathing difficulties, they need to ensure that they keep their inhalers, keep them with them. We see a lot of breathing difficulties during the heat-related months. Right now, Lulie Beckles, Ms. Beckles, she'll come up and talk to you more about that.
Hello, my name is Lulie Beckles. I am the Pediatric Injury Prevention Coordinator for Brenner's Children's Hospital at Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center, and also the Safe Kids Northwest Piedmont Coordinator, which includes Yadkin, Davie, Davidson, Forsyth, and Stokes County. And I'm here today to talk about heat stroke. Heat stroke is also known as hyperthermia, and is when your body cannot cool fast enough in order for your body to maintain temperature, you know, and so your body heats up really, really fast to dangerous levels. And symptoms may include dizziness, disorientation, agitation, confusion, loss of consciousness, and rapid heartbeat. And children are at greater risk of heat strokes. You know, their bodies can heat up 3 to 5 times faster than an adult's body. And when the body reaches 104 degrees, the major organs start shutting down. And if the body temperature of a child reaches 107 degrees, then the child can die. And you just heard a presentation about how many calls you've received of children being locked in a vehicle. Safe Kids worldwide works with partners around the country to bring awareness about heat stroke. So Wake Forest Baptist Medical Center is the regional partner for Safe Kids worldwide. And we're working really hard across the region to bring awareness about what's happening around the country. So when the sun is out in a day like today, and your car is locked, and a child is inside the car, I mean, the car is gonna heat up really, really fast. And unfortunately, we have heard on the news of children that have died already this year from heat stroke. In just 10 minutes, a car can heat up to 19 degrees. So on an 80-degree day, the outside temperature is 80 degrees, that feels pleasant. The inside of your vehicle can reach up to 100 degrees. And really cracking the window or opening it a little bit just to let cool air come in doesn't do the work. When I prepared this presentation last week, we have had 16 children die across the United States from heat stroke. And I was heartbroken Friday evening when I got the email that another had died. And then Friday morning at 7 a.m., I got another email that we had another child die. So the numbers went up to 18 children around the country. One of these children happened to die in North Carolina in May of this year. So we started this year, we had really high note. I mean, it was, July, and we already had 18 deaths, and the summer had just started. And, children die for various reasons. One of them, 54%, they were forgotten by a caregiver. And, we tend to be judgmental, and we're like, how can a parent leave a child alone in a vehicle? And it does happen. I mean, if you think about a parent and they change their routine, and maybe they had their first baby or their second baby and they're sleep deprived, and maybe they drop off the older child but didn't hear the crying baby in the back of the vehicle. And it unfortunately happens. Then 29% of children that die from heat stroke, they gain access to the vehicle and they were trapped in the car. And then 17% were left unattended or intentionally unattended. So I oftentimes see parents, they stop at the gas station or at the store, and you see children in a car in the summer or any time that they're being left in the car. And we're really trying to encourage parents to understand the importance of not leaving their children alone in their vehicles. So the most difficult part has been to look at patterns, where is this happening, or to what population, or the demographics, or geographically, or socioeconomics. And it's hard to determine because it can happen to anyone. So it doesn't fit a demographic group, socioeconomics, or geographically. It's happening all across the United States, and again, it can happen to anybody. So we measure the outcomes. In 2015 was the lowest rate, but 2015 has already shown us that, we're gonna have higher numbers, unfortunately. So we are, very concerned about what's happening and what can we do about it. So this is something that you can post on your social media, Twitter or Facebook, and to remind parents about not leaving their children alone in the car. That's a way that you can promote heat stroke. We also have these posters available. So if you are a child care provider within my region, we have within all the counties, about 1,000. We are going to be mailing you these posters in English and Spanish. So you can post them at your child care facilities. So you can have a reminder to remind parents, hey, don't leave your children in the car. And another thing that you can do is, again, avoid heat-related stroke injuries and death by never leaving a child alone. Create reminders. So we tell parents, put your purse, your cell phone, even a teddy bear, put it in the back of your seat. So when you get ready to leave, then you have to get your cell phone, your purse, or your briefcase. I also tell brand new parents to carry a teddy bear in the front seat. So if the teddy bear is riding in the front seat, that means that your baby is in the car seat. When you take your baby out, place the teddy bear in the car seat. And then as you leave off and you don't see your teddy bear next to you, then you know, oh, yes, I dropped off my child, the teddy bear is in the back seat. And this is sort of a reminder, or you can use a baby doll. But cell phones seems to work better since we're all carrying cell phones now, I think. And then take action. So if you see a child alone in a car, call 911. And, here we have, law enforcement, our Winston-Salem Police Departments and our Winston-Salem Fire Departments that are always ready there to protect children and to keep children safe. So call them, they know how to respond, they know what to do, and then take action. If you have to break the window of a vehicle, go ahead and do so, but, you're gonna be saving a child's life. And, make sure that you talk to kids about the importance of not playing in and around a vehicle. Don't leave your kids at the reach of children. I mean, as a parent, I can tell you that my oldest child had an obsession with keys, and he just loved to have keys. So we had to, get him some unused keys from a locksmith so he could carry them, but he just loved carrying real keys around. But make sure if you have a child that likes to do that, that they're not your car keys, because they can gain access to your vehicle. Tell them that trunks are not a place to play. Teach them the importance of, what a vehicle does and what is it supposed to do, and not to be playing inside. And again, if you see a child locked in a vehicle, don't be a bystander. Don't act. Don't be apathic about it. Act on it and call 911 so you can save a child's life. And the other thing that we wanted to talk about is you can encourage parents to attend our next child passenger safety check, which is going to be Thursday, July 21st from 10 to 1 p.m. at Downtown Health Plaza. Parents don't realize, but 90% of parents think that they know how to install their child's car seat correctly. In the years that I have been installing car seat, I have only seen one parent that knew how to install his car seat correctly. So take advantage of this opportunity. We are going to be having activities, hands-on activities, a thermometer, teaching kids, how the car is going to heat up, and making s'mores to really bring awareness about child passenger safety and keeping children safe in and around cars. Do you have any questions? Okay. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Good morning. My name is Robert Owens, Assistant Fire Chief. I'd like to take a few minutes to talk about a change that was recently made by the Winston-Salem City Council. On April the 18th, the City Council, at the request of the Fire Department, adopted a change to the fire inspection schedule. Prior to July 1st of this year, the Fire Department conducted inspections annually in every building in the city. Moving forward, we will conduct inspections on a staggered basis. So there'll be a 1-year, 2-year, or 3-year inspection, and it will be based upon an occupancy type. So these occupancy types have been proven to show that based on risk, certain occupancy types have more fires than other occupancy types. So some inspections will still be conducted on an annual basis. Some inspections will be conducted every other year, and other inspections will be conducted every 3 years. So we'd like to get that message out to our business owners here, because since they have been used to the fire department coming in every year, that depending upon the occupancy type and the type of business they have and the hazards present, they may not see us but once every 3 years. But certainly if they have any questions, if they have any concerns, they can feel free to contact the fire department. Our number here is 336-773-7900. So you have any questions about that? If not, I'd like to bring up Sabrina Stowe, our senior community educator. Thank you.
Good morning. Just want to mention that we're going to have our Citizens Fire Academy that's going to be running for 8 weeks on Mondays beginning August 1st through September 26th. And this is basically where citizens or residents of Winston-Salem can come out, learn about how the fire department operates, also learn a lot of fire and safety life tips that they can use in their own homes. So we encourage you to go online to apply for that. And that's going to be at cityofws.org/Citizens Fire Academy. Also want to close in also adding that we are still hiring firefighters for the Winston-Salem Fire Department as well. You can go online at cityofwsfire.org. Those applications, the application process is going to be open through midnight this Sunday, July 17th. So if you know anyone that is interested in the fire department, our hiring age begins at 18. That has been lowered. It had been 20, 21 before. So if you do know anyone that's interested that's 18 years or older, please encourage them to apply. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here. I'm Chief Roundtree from the Police Department. First of all, I'd like to take this opportunity again to thank all the employees of the Winston-Salem Police Department for all your hard work and dedication and what you do every day to provide the services to the citizens of Winston-Salem. It's been a tough time this week for law enforcement. Although it's been a tough time, you still mounted up, went out, and performed your duties in a professional manner. So thank you for that. Before we get to our topics, we do want to, as customary, we want to honor the WSPD officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty in the month of July. This month we'll be honoring Police Officer Russell Mark Willingham Jr. End of his watch was Saturday, July the 30th, 2011. Cause of death was an automobile accident. Officer Willingham was responding to assist another police officer when he was involved in a single vehicle accident in the 1700 block of Vargrave Street. Officer Willingham died of his injuries at the scene. Let us all pause for a moment as we remember and honor Officer Willingham. Also, we honor all the police officers in Dallas, Texas, and all other officers who have lost their lives while serving during the month of July. Thank you. Our list of topics for today will include a presentation by Officer Stephen Horsley on auto break-ins. Also, he'll cover information about leaving valuables and your keys in the car, and also kids and pets in the car during the summer months. Also, we'll have a traffic safety and summer event safety presentation offered by Officer Boise. And then we have a few citizens and employee accommodations that we'll wind up with at the end of those presentations. Officer Horsley.
Good morning. Again, I'm Officer Stephen Horsley, the District Investigator for Field Services Bureau. Today I wanted to come back and again talk to you about locking your doors and the crimes of opportunity. Over the reports that I've read since the last meeting, it's continued. It hasn't risen, but it's continued to be the same. We're still having vehicles unlocked. And in that, with the unlocked vehicles, I want to remind everybody that locking your vehicle is the best way of deterring crimes of opportunity and auto break-ins. Also, to reiterate the fact that don't leave valuables such as computers, spare keys, purses, wallets, any type of information or valuables in your vehicle. I also want to add to that, please secure your firearms somewhere other than your vehicle if you're going to be away from your vehicle for an extended period of time, especially if you leave the doors open. At this time, I have a very short video I want you to see. This was filmed this past January here in the city. This is a deterrent of a neighborhood who locked all their doors. And in just a minute, you should be able to see 3 individuals and how quickly this actually goes down. If you watch, he's going to walk up to the SUV. He's going to pull on the handle, and as he's doing this, if you can see, there are 2 other individuals going to different cars down the street pulling on the handles. And that's exactly how quick this occurs. And as you can see, this neighborhood was spared from their vehicles getting broken into because they all locked their vehicles. Again, that is the reason that I'm up here today, to remind everybody to please lock your vehicles, because that right there will deter probably 90% of the reports that I read, or 95% of the reports I read, are from unlocked vehicles, unsecured vehicles, going out to your vehicle at night, being tired, not double checking to make sure that you've locked it the proper way, and going back and discovering that you did not lock it and the vehicle had been gone through that night. The other thing that I wanted to talk to you about briefly is leaving your valet key and your spare key in the vehicle and leaving that vehicle unlocked. We've had some incidents where the second vehicle that's in the driveway is locked and secured, but the valet key or a second car key was left in the unlocked vehicle, and that vehicle has wound up being gone into or even taken at that time. The other part of that is in the morning. I know that some people like to get out first thing in the morning. They'll start the car because it's really hot. They'll leave it running with the air on. In the winter, they'll leave the heat on. That's also an opportunity for somebody to take the car. In leaving it running or not leaving it running, please, as the summer months are approaching, or that we're in the summer months, don't leave pets as well as your children in the car running or not running, particularly. But this also is not only a health hazard, but it's also a crime of opportunity as well. You're leaving a child or a pet in particular in a vehicle, secured or unsecured, and it's just an opportunity for disaster. To conclude this, WSTV has produced 2 public service announcements that we're going to watch the first one now.
Leaving your car unlocked? It's an invitation to thieves.
These public service announcements were put together by WSTV and the Winston-Salem Marketing Department, and they're going to be distributed over social media starting today, as well as they're going to be running on WSTV starting today as well. There's one more that we'd like to show you.
Leaving your car unlocked? It's an invitation to thieves.
As humorous as these are, these actually get the point across of exactly what we're trying to reiterate. It is really like putting a giant sign up or a flashing open sign to come take whatever's inside and advertising what you have. I will conclude with, in the valuables part, hiding your valuables partially hidden is not always a deterrent either. Just throwing a jacket over it or trying to hide it under your seat is not always a deterrent in doing this. Does anybody have any questions for me this month?
How frequent is this problem, people having their cars broken into?
Right now it's occurring on a daily basis. And it's, again, in the reports that I've read since our last meeting, 95 to 98% of them were all due to having your vehicle unlocked.
What about firearms in the vehicles? You mentioned people wanting to
There have been several incidents in the last few weeks of firearms being unsecured, left in the car, concealed, of course, but they were still left in the vehicle, and the vehicle was left unlocked, yes.
Any specific types, and were you able to recover them?
I don't have any of that with me.
How many times has this happened, I guess, in the past month, or
It's a daily occurrence.
you doing one a day, a couple a day?
It varies by the day.
What about locations anywhere?
It's all over the city. It's still happening all over the city, like we talked last month. This is not, the incidents are continuing to rise because the doors are still being left unlocked.
And give people a little bit of insight into how long of a process it is to get everything rectified if you were to have your car stolen?
As far as from our end or insurance end?
Just in general, getting it back.
That There are no real specifics of how long it could take. It could take a day, it could take never getting it back. It just depends.
With these, is it typically that people are just taking stuff out of the car? How often is the car itself being taken?
There have been several incidents where the vehicles are being used to move from one scene to another because the keys were left to the secondary vehicle. It's occurred on a couple of occasions, but it's not. Most of them are crimes of opportunity. The door's unlocked. There's small items, big items, things in that. Yeah.
Have you guys seen anything where someone's car was stolen and then was used to commit a crime?
Not used to commit it, yes. Are you talking about using it in another crime as well?
Like somebody steals the vehicle and then goes and commits a crime using that vehicle?
Yes, yes. They use it to get to other crime scenes and do things like that, yes. Are there any other questions? Well, I thank you. And now I'm going to call up Officer Stephen Boise of our Traffic Enforcement Unit.
Good morning. I'm Officer Boise with the Traffic Enforcement Unit. I'll be talking about cookout safety, especially drinking and driving during the summertime with the nice weather and the cookouts happening on a daily basis. Again, just be mindful. There's going to be drinking at these cookouts. Don't drink and drive. They often involve alcohol, and late in the summer days, because of the longer days, they result in many people driving under the influence of alcohol, and often during the weekend, more often during the weekend when everybody's off of work. Some stats: every 2 minutes, a person is injured in a drunk driving crash. In 2013, it says 28.7 million people admitted to driving under the influence of alcohol. That's 1 beer to 10 beers for just, it ranges in anywhere. It says it's more than the state of population of Texas. Another 27 people die as a result of the drinking and driving crashes. In 2014, 9,967 people died in drunk driving crashes, 1 every 53 minutes, and 29,000 were injured in drunk driving crashes. It's nationwide. Some tips to prevent it: always have a designated driver. It's a great idea for anybody to have. Have somebody take up the car keys upon arrival to the party. If you know you're going to be drinking, just leave your car keys there with them until you sober up. Be a responsible host. Know when to say when to your guests. A little awkward talk now is better than a lot of explaining later. Have accommodations ready for those who cannot drive away from your party. You know, make a couch or a blow-up mattress or something available for them. Or, if possible, plan to stay the night. A night on the couch beats a night in jail or worse. As a police department, we do monthly DWI checkpoints, more proactive DWI enforcement. The task force also has this impact. It's a high school age DWI awareness and education. They go around to the high schools and talk to the students about drinking and driving. Some consequences: just on the charge, your license is automatically revoked for 30 days, can be for a year or more. Thousands of dollars in court fines, fees, and lawyer retention, civil penalties, and loss of your job. A lot of jobs rely on you to have a driver's license. Can't drive if you don't have a job, or driver's license. Cookouts are designed to bring families and friends together and have a wonderful time. Apply these safety tips and enjoy the rest of your summer. The Traffic Enforcement Unit is still working this case of the traffic fatality on Reedsville Road. The report number 1629941 involved this tractor trailer running over a motorcyclist and left the scene. This is one of the better pictures of the truck. It was about 12:10 p.m. It's a black Peterbilt Custom 379. We ranged it from 98 to 2002 model. Ultra sleeper cab, red fenders, chrome arrow wing on the top of the cab, custom chrome 8-inch straight stacks for the exhaust. The windshield had a visor and bug deflector, and it was driven by a male possibly in his late 40s. He was last seen traveling north on 158 out of the city. Is there any questions?
When that incident on Reedsville Road originally happened, I believe I remember something saying that you guys may have thought that the driver was unaware that he hit the motorcyclist. Is that still the case?
We have a witness, I believe, saying that he knows he hit something, but he thought it was the motorcycle. But he still left the scene.
So is that something where you guys are looking to pursue charges against him?
Yeah, if he would have stayed, he'd have been interviewed. He wasn't the cause of the crash, but yeah, now we're looking for at least leaving the scene of the crime and other charges. Chief Brown?
All right, thank you, Officer Horsley and Officer Borsley. We do want to drive home the point of locking your vehicles. I know many of you asked questions about that. Again, about well over 90% of those are the result of individuals not locking their vehicle. Of course, you can prevent that just by taking the extra steps in locking your vehicles. Next, I will ask Captain Chris Louder to come forward. He's the district captain for District 2. We have a citizen and an employee accommodation that he will be presenting, and then I'll come back with another citizen employee and a life-saving award for 4 police officers.
Thank you, Chief. I'm Chris Louder, Captain in the Field Services Bureau and Patrol over District 2, which geographically is everything east of 52. We have the honor today of presenting some citizen commendations and employee commendations. First of all, I'd like to have Mr. Adrian McFadden come up, please, sir. Mr. McFadden, thank you for joining us today. On March 11, 2016, Officer Delton Adams was conducting foot patrol at the food line in the 1100 block of Walltown Street. Officer Adams was in the midst of speaking with business employees when he observed a wanted subject whom he recognized from previous encounters. When Officer Adams attempted to arrest the suspect physically resisted and struggled with Officer Adams. The struggle resulted in both Officer Adams and the suspect falling to the ground, with the suspect physically assaulting Officer Adams while he was standing over him. Mr. McFadden responded from inside the business to assist Officer Adams. Mr. McFadden assisted by grabbing the suspect in an attempt to stop him from injuring Officer Adams. The suspect pulled away from Mr. McFadden and ran from the scene. The suspect was located and arrested a short time later. As a result of Mr. McFadden's actions in assisting Officer Adams during this physical confrontation, Officer Adams was not injured and the suspect was arrested for outstanding warrants. Mr. McFadden is a positive example of citizens and law enforcement working together to achieve common goals. Yes, sir. Mr. McFadden, thank you for your actions, and Chief Roundtree has a citizen commendation for you.
I think Officer Adams is here too. You want to come forward? This is a citizen commendation, a certificate of appreciation, and it's for Adrian Lamont McFadden. Thank you for all that you did that day. This is a prime example of the police officers and citizens working together to ensure that we have a safe community. So congratulations today. You have anything you'd like to say?
No, pretty much.
All right then. How about you, Officer Adams?
Well, I just definitely want to tell them thank you. It means a lot. You know, we go out here and do a dangerous job, so it's definitely good to have the support of the citizens when a need such as that arises.
All right. Thank you again.
This time I have a second citizen commendation and employee commendation to present. If I could have Mr. Dan Dwight join me up here, please, and Sergeant Tracy Wooten. Yes, sir. On Monday, June 13th at 10:30 a.m., police officers were dispatched to 4555 West Hill Place Lane on a reported toddler drowning. Upon arrival, the child, 4-year-old Michael James Gallison, had been removed from the pool by Miss Brittany Geralds. CPR efforts were initiated by Mr. Dan Dwight, and the child regained a faint pulse and began breathing. Sergeant Tracy Wooten was the first officer to arrive on the scene, and she assisted in stabilizing and monitoring of Michael's vital signs. EMS responded, and Michael was transported to Brenner Children's Hospital, where he received treatment. Sergeant Wooten followed up that day at Brenner Children's Hospital to monitor Michael's prognosis. Michael was released from the hospital the next day on Tuesday, June 14th, and has fully recovered from the incident. On June 14th, Sergeant Wooten took it upon her own initiative to organize a gift basket of toys and a get well card for Michael, which was signed by numerous officers from the Winston-Salem Police Department. Sergeant Wooten and members of the department's Community Resources Unit delivered the gift basket of toys and card to Michael and his family. The successful rescue and recovery efforts in this incident are due to the quick and decisive response by Ms. Geralds, Mr. Dwight, and Sergeant Wooten. Unfortunately, due to some scheduling conflicts, Ms. Geralds was not able to join us today. And I'd also like to mention that Mr. Dwight's spouse, Mary Dwight, was also there and instrumental in calling 911. She's also here with us and deferred to her husband to receive the recognition. The father of the child, Mr. Chad Gallison, wrote a very heartfelt thank you letter to Sergeant Wooten. I spoke with Mr. Gallison this week. He's here as well. We're honored to have him in our presence. I'd like to read the card that was written to Sergeant Wooten for her efforts and her actions taken on that day. Sergeant Wooten, and this is from Mr. Chad Gallison, in the last week I've heard a dozen or more times, quote, just doing my job, their job, with regard to the many people involved with saving and care of my little Michael. In the eyes of most of you, you are someone who protects, looks out for, and risks her life potentially for the rest of us. But to me and my family, you are an angel. There were a number of people involved in helping Michael, but it is because of your response and your actions that my Michael is still with us. When you came to see Michael and brought gifts and went out of your way to arrange for McGruff to come by, Michael did not exactly yet have the capacity to understand what you did for him or why, but I did. Thank you said a million times would never be enough to express how grateful I am. Michael's life may not be the first you have saved, nor will it likely be the last. But one day in June of 2016, you were Michael's guardian angel, and on the day following, you made him feel like the most special boy alive. Thank you, Sergeant Wooten, from the deepest depths of my heart and soul. And I thank you on behalf of Michael's mom, brother, and sister, and everyone whose life you have touched. There were 2 pictures included that Michael and his sister drew as well. With love, respect, and eternal gratitude, Chad Gallison. And as Chief, opened, of course, it has been and continues to be a very difficult time for law enforcement across the country. This is certainly a time for us to honor Mr. Dwight, Sergeant Wooten, Miss Mary Dwight, Miss Geralds, and the first responders who made a difference that day. And I think also what makes this special from the perspective of the police department, our first line supervisors are out there to make sure that the resources are managed properly, that the officers are responding accordingly, that they're in their beats, and that they're following protocol. But yet, we have a sergeant who's out there also on her game and who was there and who took action and was involved in the community, going above and beyond. And she hasn't asked for any special recognition, nor has Mr. Dwight, but the chief felt strongly and the police department felt strongly that everybody I've named deserved the recognition. So again, I'd like to thank the members up here and everybody involved in that incident, and Chief Roundtree has some certificates of commendation.
Thank you both. Mr. Dwight, I do have a certificate for you as well. It's a certificate of commendation, appreciation, and to Citizen Daniel Gerald Dwight for your life-saving efforts on a 4-year-old who had fallen into a pool. So thank you for all that you did. Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief.
Also for Sergeant Wooten, thank you for everything that you did to ensure that one of our young citizens was saved, and you also went above and beyond to provide some things for him at the hospital. So thank you for that. Thank you. Congratulations. Y'all have anything you'd like to say? Anything from the family they'd like to say? Dad, you want to say something? Okay. Thank you. And the last one that we have, I'll ask Officer D.S. Galbraith, Officer Mia, Officer J.L. Long, and Officer A.R. Cruz to come forward. Also, I'll have the District 1 Captain, Captain Natasha Miles. She will be reading the information concerning what these officers did to perform in an exemplary manner, and I'll be presenting the certificates.
Good morning. On Friday, July 8th, shortly before 3 p.m., officers with the Winston-Salem Police Department responded to a report of a child choking at 2059 Batavia Road. Officers responded and located an unresponsive 3-year-old male child that was being tended to by his mother and father. The father began mouth-to-mouth resuscitation with his son just as the officers approached them. The officers, in accordance with their training, began working together systematically and quickly assessed the child's condition as the father continued rescue breathing techniques. During the physical assessment, officers could no longer detect the child's pulse. They then immediately began teamwork-based emergency life-saving techniques, which centered on the restoration of the child's ability to breathe and the child's pulse. The child's father remained actively involved in this process with the officers the entire time. These life-saving measures were successful by these officers and contributed to the life-saving of this child. And we thank you for your service to our community.
And I do have some life-saving awards that I'll be presenting to each officer. Thank you again for everything that you did to ensure that our young citizen life was saved. I'll just read one certificate. They read the same, and the officers will also be receiving a life-saving bar and pen as well. First is Officer A.R. Cruz, and it reads, Officer A.R. Cruz did perform in such a manner as to be recognized for the delivery of life-saving aid and assistance. Therefore, as Chief of Police, this award is being presented to you for your performance. And again, all of them read the same, so each 4 will be presented with the same award. Officer Cruz. Officer Mia. Officer Ed Albert. Officer Long. Thank you all again. Y'all have anything you'd like to say? No? All right, thank you. Okay, that's all that we have for the police department. You can also follow us on Twitter at City of WS Police. And if that's all, if we don't have any additional questions at this time, we'll conclude the press briefing. Thank you for coming.